is somebody many of you never heard of. John MacIver, however, is the architect of virtually every major public program that you would call a conservative, responsibility-based program over the last 30 years. Those in government do know who John MacIver is, and it's my great pleasure today. First of all, I want to introduce Carolyn MacIver and Laura Parsons, his daughters who joined me here today, as well as there are several members of his other family, which is the law firm of Michael Best and Friedrich, where John practiced for many years at Bill White, Dave Hansen, John Flanagan, and Scott Bechtel, all from our management committee. Today we can announce that nearly $500,000 has been raised to create this think tank directed at the bedrock of principles that John MacIver believed in. Liberty, freedom, and responsibility matter. I recall one of the early times that I met John MacIver. He was again, the managing partner of our law firm, but far more for public policy. And I sat in his office and I asked him, John, why did you make school choice so important? Why did you think this was important? This was a Republican. This is at a time when, we eschewed Milwaukee. And he looked out that window and he said to me, it is criminal, Jim. It is criminal and it is immoral for us to ignore generation after generation and relegate them to second-class citizenship in our country. And I don't care what your political stripe is, that is simply wrong. And so as he originated the ideas of welfare reform and the ideas of school choice, enacted through a number of administrations, everyone behind the scenes knew who the source of those ideas was, John MacIver. But you would never have read his name in the newspaper, because he also understood that the real principle, that citizens make a difference, is the most important. I don't need to read it in the newspaper. Next slide, please. This is John, and as I said many years ago, next slide, please. So in creating the John MacIver Institute of Public Policy, directed at the state of Wisconsin, at state-level policy, we have created something very special. It's something directed at freedom and liberty, limited government, and personal responsibility. These are principles that John MacIver lived every day of his life, that he was unabashed about. He did not associate that with Democrats. He did not associate that with Republicans or independents. He associated with the principles that he grew up with and that he believed were, as I say, the bedrock principles. Good policy, John would have said, is good government. Next slide. And so as we develop in this state the intellectual horsepower for those ideas, we have to have someone like John MacIver and the John MacIvers of the world. And so the purpose of this institute is set out here. We will give you and everyone in this state the intellectual background, the prestige, the information you need to pursue the principles of freedom, liberty, less government, less taxes. You cannot simply do, and note what others have done. Others in other spheres have always said, we're the intellectuals. We're the ones with ideas. That's wrong. And John MacIver knew that. And that's what this institute, which will be across the street from the Capitol in Madison, Wisconsin, will be dedicated to. And as I said, a great number of people have already stepped up to the plate and contributed the kind of money needed to do the appropriate studies. Next slide. Over the next several months, you will hear about the MacIver Institute. And we begin by asking the question, what really matters? What do people think in this state? Have we somehow changed? Because we need to direct this institute in a way that makes a difference for you and me. Next slide. People have not changed. When we ask the simple question, do you want less spending? 83% said yes. And again, that is not a political statement. That is a statement of reality, because every one of us goes home tonight And we're going to think about how we're going to live on less over the next several months. And yet government does exactly the opposite. Wisconsin's a very special place. It's a place of common sense. It's a place of ideas, the source of many ideas in the 20th and now the 21st century. And that's what you see in this simple poll question that we ask even after all of the last year or two. That the vast majority of your neighbors and your friends agree wholeheartedly with the proposition that we start by reducing the size of government. We do not start by increasing the size of government. Next slide. So we followed that up with a very simple proposition, a statement of the truth about the potential budget in Wisconsin. As I said, this is a policy institute directed to Wisconsin. We asked the people of our state, all over the state, well, what then, if you understood the budget to be $10 in tax increases for each dollar of spending, that is the budget. That's not made up. We didn't come up with that off the top of our head. That's if you do the numbers. Not surprisingly, 72% of your neighbors and friends said, we don't like it. We oppose that. Now, we can sugarcoat it. You can have a lot of different ways of saying these things to avoid the question. But when the question is posed properly, so that you ask and you tell people and you inform people, this is the answer that you get. So we know less government, less spending is still the principle we believe in Wisconsin. Personal responsibility and freedom. So let's flip that equation and ask the proxy question. It's a proxy. What about taxes? Because taxes are a proxy for larger government. Again, a reduction in your freedom and liberty. Next slide. We found, without regard to specific taxes, because it's always easy to say tax the other guy. He's going to pay the tax, not me. I used to have a professor that said there's no such thing as corporate tax. It doesn't exist. There is no corporate tax. Corporations do not pay taxes. Individuals pay taxes. You might call it a corporate tax. You might impose it on an entity called a corporation. But everyone in here pays it. Individuals pay taxes. Corporations don't pay taxes. The words that we use are going to be very important. But when you ask it straightforwardly, people agree. Don't raise taxes. That's the principles of freedom, liberty. Less government, less taxes that John MacIver stood for. Next slide. That's it. In the end, the MacIver Institute will give, we hope, well-meaning people of this state the ammunition they need to pursue the principles that John MacIver lived every day of his life. Freedom, liberty, responsibility, less government, more individuals. We look forward to providing that over the years to come. Thank you very much. Thank you to the family and others.